Our shadow hides the uncomfortable truths we've pushed away, but ignoring it only creates inner conflict. Learn to integrate the shadow and gain true peace and happiness. The doctor is in. Let's begin. Alright, what do we have today? Why you need to get to know your shadow self. Well, I'm all about trying to get to know myself a little bit better. Actually, I think the more you do know about yourself, the happier you'll be. But before we get into all that, let's start off with this quote from the article itself to give us an idea of what we're about to get into. Okay. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Let's take a moment to think about that for a second. Okay, good. Basically, this implies if you don't know all of yourself, the good and bad, you'll just end up feeling lost. You feel like life is predetermined or it's based entirely on luck. And those feelings just do not sit right with me. Though I will admit, it does make for a very good anime. Okay, let's move on. The shadow. Carl Jung first coined the term shadow to describe the aspects of our psyches that have been relegated to the unconscious. These are psychological blind spots. Often the shadow is made up of personally and culturally unacceptable qualities we want nothing to do with, and which we use various psychological strategies to avoid acknowledging, such as projection, sublimation, and repression. For example, if as children we were met with disgust or rejection when we cried or acted too needy, we may have learned to strive to be independent, undemanding, and emotionally controlled. So really, this process, this concept of a shadow, isn't just about hiding emotions. It's about completely denying parts of ourselves. Our ego, the self-image we present to the world, it's just a polished version of who we think we should be based on the traits we've chosen to accept. Those we've banished to the shadow realm. And if you get that reference, I think you're awesome. So while our ego may shine with independence and emotional control, it's really just a house of cards built on a foundation of repressed aspects we've convinced ourselves aren't part of who we are. So shadow work to me is all about integrating all parts of our personality, not just the ones that fit our preferred image or ego. Recognizing shadow material. If we remain ignorant to our shadow material, we will find small leaks of it in our lives. This is because of qualities we have rejected don't disappear. They just lay in wait. They begin to influence us in indirect ways through our unconscious. Typically, we only recognize them when their leakage causes enough damage to our lives that we can no longer ignore them. For example, if we are unwilling to acknowledge our emotions and needs, we are likely to find ourselves resentful of our partners and our unsatisfying relationships. An unmet and unacknowledged desire to be affirmed and understood emotionally could predictably lead to a host of difficulties, including depression, infidelity, and substance use. Oh my goo. Yes, I can safely say I do not want that for anybody. Though the way I like to think about the shadow is like a beach ball, okay? You can take an inflated beach ball and submerge it underwater. Sure, you're able to keep that inflated beach ball underwater for a time, but eventually you're going to get tired. You're going to lose focus, and when you do, that beach ball is going to pop back up and bop you in the face. So we have to be able to recognize the shadow. It's just unfortunate that when we notice our shadow, we often feel discomfort or shame because we're dealing with parts of ourselves we've pushed away and would like to forget. There's a definite cringe factor to it. It's not easy, and in the long run, I think accepting our shadow will help us be kinder to ourselves. So it's a good thing that there are actual ways that we can connect with our shadow. Drawing out the shadow. Okay, cool. The real learning begins. Shadow material must be drawn out skillfully. This can be extremely challenging, but there are some strategies that have been shown to help us begin the process of connecting to our shadows. Okay, number 1, notice what triggers you. People, behaviors, and personality characteristics in others that elicit a strong negative emotion in you are clues that shadow material may be afoot. That's a good point. Point number 2, keep a dream journal. Dreams and fantasies offer information about themes and conflicts present in the unconscious. So, after you have a very vivid dream, write it down in your journal, and when you have enough entries, just read through them and try and find those common themes. Themes. These could just be, as an example, you have dreams of your teeth falling out all the time, or you're falling, or you get into a car crash, but then you wake up and you realize everything's okay, including your car. Make art. Drawing, painting, writing music, or any activity that enables you to trust and follow your instincts is going to help you connect with the more intuitive, less ego-driven aspects of your psyche. Which, art's good for the soul, and it's actually good to just avoid anything that is ego-driven. Number 4, meditate. When we sit with quiet attention, we learn about some of the natural habits and abilities of our minds. Very zen. Number 5, use active imagination. Okay, I'm thinking about SpongeBob right now. I don't know why. Active imagination is a process developed by Carl Jung to work with unconscious material. Okay, he helped out a lot more there. And lastly, work with a therapist or a Jungian analyst. As always, it is a good idea to seek professional counseling. Okay, I really enjoyed learning about the shadow work today because I think this training could really help us see the hidden parts of ourselves that we usually ignore. I found myself thinking about how the ego and the shadow are connected. While the ego being the part of ourselves we want the world to see, and the shadow holds the parts we try to hide. These parts are the feelings or behaviors we think are wrong or don't fit who we want to be. For example, we might push away feelings like anger or sadness because they don't match the image of being strong or happy. But the thing is, those feelings are still a part of ourselves. In fact, those emotions are perfectly normal. It's okay for you to be angry. It's also okay for you to be sad. Just don't get those confused with being hatred or depressed. I mean, those are bad. I just think that a good amount of people don't know what normal behavior is, simply because there are these external forces that are misleading people, telling them that what's perfectly normal for a person is either bad, wrong, or unnatural. And that ends up confusing people, and that confusion leads to the shadow growing until eventually that shadow bursts up and bops you in the face. Anyway, I can also say that I did like the tip about how to spot the shadow by noticing how people avoid acknowledging their true feelings and desires, because for me, it relates to the psychological defense mechanisms that people use sometimes. So, if we spot those defenses, we can learn more about the person's shadow. I find that projection is one of the easiest to work with because when someone projects, they put their own issues onto someone else. So if they criticize certain traits in others, it's likely they struggle with those same traits themselves. So look for the patterns in the criticism and be aware of the criticism you may give to others as well. I just think that should be mentioned. I also found that all the strategies for drawing out the shadow are really great tools for that self-discovery. My personal favorite is active imagination. The way I understand it is that active imagination is like daydreaming, but with a purpose. You're basically having an adult conversation with your inner critic. And this can be done either out loud or in your thoughts, preferably in front of a mirror. Well, either way, it involves actively listening to that critical voice. You can start by asking your inner critic, why are you so mean to me? What are you trying to save me from? And it could respond with something like, if I don't push you, you won't succeed. You're not good enough on your own. So, yeah, hearing that, it's gonna hurt. And it's gonna sting. So, you have to be patient and try to understand the deeper message behind that critic. Again, the goal is to bring that hidden critical aspect of yourself into the light, to understand it and accept it. Oh, and as always, working with a therapist will greatly benefit your understanding of yourself. Because, after all, they are the guides of the mind. They can lead you, but you have to take those steps and stare into the abyss that is your shadow. And when it stares back at you, don't blink. Anyway, to wrap this up, in general, I think shadow work or individuation is about becoming a more whole being. And that's what will lead to happiness. It's that completeness feeling. That's the happiness. To me, I just think, how can you be happy with yourself when you are also denying parts of yourself? To clarify, I don't think everything in your shadow is all good, and I don't think it's all bad there either. At the end of the day, your shadow is your shadow, and it's going to have the traits that you deemed as bad based on your personal view or society's view. Overall, I'm in favor of accepting the shadow because we have to be able to integrate both the positive and negative traits to reduce that inner conflict we have and live more authentically, which not only makes us feel happier, but can also positively impact the people around us. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed listening and want to hear or see more content like this, like and subscribe, follow me on X. The doctor is out.